Welcome back to the Start and Scale podcast. I'm your host, Jack Brandwood, and in this series, we're diving headfirst into the world of tech with the people who are coding the future from the front lines. This is the place where we refactor the way you think about scaling tech teams, debugging their journeys, reviewing their stories, and pushing boundaries to ship better insights. Whether you're a seasoned techie who's seen your fair share of legacy code, an aspiring professional ready to deploy your skills, or just fascinated by the world of technology, this episode will give you unique insights and practical takeaways to add to your backlog.
I grew a consultancy to 500 people.
So grab your headphones, commit to this listen, and let's sprint into another episode. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Luke, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, is it weird coming back to this area? Because I know that's where you spent a lot of some of your career, especially during COVID.
I love it.
Ankos.
I love it. I love Manchester. I just get such a buzz just being around. But spent COVID here, lockdown here, and many days walking around the empty streets of Manchester.
Of course, it must have been such a weird time.
It was weird. Yeah, it went weird. I mean, I moved up in November 2019, and then all of a sudden everything started locking down, and I was up here with my partner, and we were soon queuing up against pubs, helping them empty out those
the beer kegs.
The beer kegs, exactly. Yeah. But no, good times.
Yeah, good to be back. I always like to start these with a really deep question, which is, who is Luke Morton?
Who is Luke Morton?
Yeah.
Definitely a geek. Was having this conversation earlier today. Never found my sport. My thing is being behind the computer. That's been the thing I've always gravitated to and come back to. So a huge part of me is code and software. Since a 13-year-old, I've been coding since that young. I was lucky to have the family computer in my bedroom. So, code's a huge part of me. But as I've got older, I kind of wanted to turn that into a business and doing and starting a business. And so that is also me, excited, techie, entrepreneurial type. And the third part is probably my most biggest important part is my family, really. I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and that was a huge thing and change, and kind of me settling down in my 30s and becoming a family man rather than a party man.
Fair enough. How was having a kid, and how did it make you think differently about work? Because you work.
I literally started a startup and a family at the same time.
Nice.
I've always been the type to have 10 years set blurry goals, and then 3-year picture and 1-year plan, and kind of set those goals out. The really long blurry 10-year one was start a family and start a business, and it came round that deadline loomed and came, and I don't know, all the stars aligned. I exited MadeTech, my last business, and then started a family and a business all at the same time. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But finding that balance is really difficult. And I think one of the early things that I found was, I quit my last job. I knew I wanted to start a product. I had a few different ideas, but I was like, right, I need to take some time off. I need to just appreciate the break, have 2-3 months off. And then during that time, all I was doing is writing business plans in the evening and just coming up with lots of ideas and code and all sorts of prototypes and playing around. So I always itching to get into it.
You exited your last business. How long after did you say that you exited your last business that you started FirstStage?
Right. Yeah. So I exited my last business in 2022.
Jeez.
And so I decided to take a few months off just to relax and try and enjoy some time off like you should. Very quickly I was just drawing business plans in the evening. I mean, we went to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, saw some friends out in Australia. Wow. But literally in the evenings I was just creating decks and prototypes of code and all sorts of things. So I was really itching to get into it. you then start working on and actually starting a startup, and then you have a baby. But I found that what I was actually able to do, I was in a fortunate enough position to really dial my time up and down as and when was needed. And so I've kind of got entrepreneurial guilt that I really didn't go as fast in that first year starting my business. But I was around all the time, seeing my daughter every day. You know, I'd say I was like half and half, you know, 50-50, only working half time on it, part time. So I will never regret investing that in my family and the early days of my daughter. So that's great. But of course, I'm like, I could have gone faster if I was working hard out on it. But I think I had the best of both worlds in those early days. Yeah.
That's so exciting. And I know it must be, I know, because people say setting up a business is hard, obviously, which you've done. People say having a family and a child, incredibly difficult, time consuming. The fact that you did both at the same time is absolute lunacy. But the fact that you were able to balance it so well, also awesome.
In the early days, yeah. I'm not sure if I bootstrapped the business. I'm not sure if I had funding, anyone would be accepting of that like kind of slightly slower pace. And so, you know, again, it's a bit of like, I've got an external view of me. Like, it's probably an investor kind of looking at me. That's the lens where I'm like, no, you should have gone faster. But I didn't need to, did I? And things are really, you know, picking up with that now. And I feel I have no regrets prioritizing family. And that's now a huge part of me.
Yeah, also
a huge energy source, right?
Yeah, I was just about to say, that must be such a big motivator. Like, for having a family to provide for now. I'm not just like having to afford beers on the weekend and
Exactly. There's that, and also, you know, it's a highly nourishing area for me to just like spend like in a different context, right? That's really rewarding, and I can kind of let go of some of the business stuff in that moment. It's like, it's really hard. You know, you start a business and you know this yourself, like you're just obsessing about it all the time. You've got it kind of ekes into everywhere. You can't escape it. But I when I'm with my family, that's when I can escape it a bit. I can step out of it, or at least I try.
Yeah, and you know what? In saying that, I think
it's like a higher purpose. Sorry,
higher purpose, and I also think I haven't got kids, but I have like young nieces and nephews and stuff, and I always tend to find when I'm hanging out with them or looking after them, I tend to go back to like play mode. Like, I turn into a bit of a kid myself, and it's so lovely, and it's a really great way to just let go and be present. And you do find, and you probably found this, more ideas come in during play.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's hard as you get older to remain playful as well, especially if you don't have like kids in your life.
Exactly. Maytech, I joined that business, I don't know when it was, 2014. I joined on the promise that we were going to build lots of different products. We were going to be a product lab, but we ended up getting some consulting revenue, and you know, we just ended up building a consulting business, which is awesome. But within a couple of years, I became a director of that business alongside the two founders, mostly to help decide arguments between the two of them. They thought they'd bring on a third. So and like that was an awesome like learning to scale a business. Like, you know, when I joined, I was employee number 6, and we grew it to about 500 before I left, and floated it on the stock market. All that exciting stuff. But I mean, I stopped coding 2 years into that 8-9 year journey, and that's my hobby, right? And you talk about play, and so code has always throughout that time, even though I was like, you know, leading client deliveries or doing like, you know, sales or whatever the thing was, change management, all sorts of random hats and jobs. You know, I was still able to always have that play in my area of interest, which is software. And so I kind of, always been able to kind of go to that and experiment with as well. So yeah, I think change of context is good for like having ideas, but also, just that being my go-to hobby and relaxation's like it's always been a little superpower, I think, and a place for me to tap into.
And I think it must be, I'm envious in a way, really, actually, because you found your passion at 13 years old.
Exactly.
You were coding, like everyone dreams of that. Because if you're passionate about something the way you are, you know, you're unstoppable, really, right?
I mean, I was lucky to have the family computer in my bedroom.
What was it, by the way? Was it a Fortran or was it?
No, I'm younger than that. Yeah, no. But I, you know, my parents split up. We moved to a new house, and I managed to convince my mum to buy a mesh computer. I upgraded all the RAM, decided everything, and she said I could have it in my bedroom. So I was a naughty teenager. I definitely got myself into trouble, but I was always, when I come back home playing video games or on the computer, like teaching myself various code things. So I've always, like you say, I'm very lucky to have known early on that that's something I was interested in. Turning that into a career, or finding a career, was a different matter. But I think always having it as like a hobby or a thing that I could lean into, that was like, you have to get good at something, you have to put the hours in, and I think you have to have a passion there, don't you, to be able to put those hours in.
100%. And actually, that reminds me, before I forget, I kind of warned you that this was going to happen, so I'm really sorry. You weren't always Luke Morton of FirstStage. What did you want to be when you grew up, and could you draw it for us?
Okay. So, if I'm being really honest, I was really big into anime when I was a kid. So all I really ever expected to be was, not even expected to be. I just wanted to be someone from like Dragon Ball Z. That was basically my thing. I haven't, and I used to spend weekends drawing. I'm not a good artist.
I was going to say, you set yourself up there.
I've really set myself up. This is when I was really young, really, really, I don't know what age are you when you're watching Dragon Ball Z, but probably, I mean, it's all fighting and violence really, but I was into it.
It is, but do you think it's interesting that anime, there's a lot of like honor and like and stuff like that baked into it, isn't there, in these Japanese cartoons?
Yes, yeah, as well. And actually, I'm not Japanophile, but I mean, I've really enjoyed visiting Japan, and there's aspects of how different society is in Japan that I kind of just think's pretty cool. How polite and just the way society functions. I think it's just different. But look at me, I'm trying to.
Mate, that's really good so far. Honestly, I'll show you some of the cartoons that people have drawn after this.
Look, and also, like, it's not that I wanted to have. I don't have muscles. I never invested in muscles, but I did. Like, I guess I just thought that I was a little kid and I liked playing around with my cousins and having little play fights and stuff. But Dragon Ball Z was just cool. So, and also he's able to fly. He's able to instantly transport to places.
Wow, that's so good.
Look, it's been a while since I've heard that.
Well done. So did you want to be an anime character?
Well, exactly. My imagination was rife as a kid. It was either that or like Gundam Wing, which was like big machines, like you imagine Transformers. Like So it's one of those two things. But
Japan have got such an interesting culture in terms of like obviously like Kaizen,
exactly,
Japanese Ikigai,
exactly.
God, there's so many, isn't there? And
all of these things come into business practices, right? And that's where Agile come from, and Kanban, and all these good practices.
Why do you think? I wasn't planning to ask you this, but why do you think Japan is like a hub of all these things coming from Japan? Like why?
I think there's an element of almost spirituality or kind of knowledge that goes beyond just like technical knowledge, but on how to reflect and behave and understand. I feel like there's something like that, and I actually think we miss that as a culture, and I feel we kind of miss a bit of a spiritual core these days in especially in the UK. I feel we've kind of lost an identity or a sense of pride, and I think I feel like that's maybe stronger in places where they've held on to singular culture, right? Japan, but I guess they've held on to a strong identity and belief system through that, and I think that comes out and reflects into practices like how it moves from martial arts into kind of business.
I really love I've never been to Japan, but I have a lot of friends who have been to Japan. I was speaking to a client of mine the other day who is also a bit of a Japanophile, and he was talking about the belt systems that they have over there, which I think is such a good. It must be great growing up having some like a belt system, and I think it goes beyond martial arts as well. The belt systems that they have, I think there can be other things where you can like get belts and you can see progression, and and you can start. I think there's something very liberating about starting off really crap at something and then realizing, oh, hang on, like I've been doing this for a year now. I'm actually less crap than I was. Still crap, but less crap than I was. If I do it for another year, I'm going to be probably less crap than I am now. And it's that building on things, I think, is quite an interesting thought to have.
I see similarities with that, and we were talking about apprenticeships, but you know, like the journeyman, the apprentice studying under the master, and then you get to a certain level. This is medieval kind of, learning to become a blacksmith or a craft. You know, you're the apprentice. You're working under a master in their studio, kind of learning from them. But then you become the second phase is that you become a journeyman. And you go to work for lots of different masters. You go to see how different masters of your craft practice in different locations. And so you go traveling as a journeyman for a number of years or decades. And then finally you settle in your own studio and you become the master.
I'd never heard that before.
So this is how all kind of trades kind of were managed and skills were managed into careers and into trades. This is how they evolved through the medieval period, and so I feel like it's a similar system to the belts, and there's probably a lot to be said about that system, and maybe where we don't develop skills.
Because chefs do that as well, right? Because they send them off to go to like France.
They stage or whatever they call
stage.
it.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, and they go send. So that's the same sort of practice. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. And I'm conscious that we're going way off track here. But,
we've got tangent on tangent on tangent.
Japanese medieval culture. So the one question
I've thrown you off.
I know, God, this never happens. So the one thing I wanted to ask you was your product now, FirstStage. In fact, it might be good to talk us through FirstStage, where the idea came from, and what FirstStage does.
All right, I'll do a long rambling intro. I decided I wanted to start a business. I actually tried a completely different thing in the blockchain space. Turns out in 2022, that's a really, really bad time to start anything in blockchain. Now is actually probably a good time. But yeah, definitely a bad time then. So, but I had two things really in my head. There was AI going on, and I thought, I want to get that on my CV. I want to play around with that. And also, actually, the one thing I had done was I grew a consultancy to 500 people, and I sat across all the different software engineering, user research, data, cyber, all of these different practices. And we just hiring used to be amazing when we were a small team. But as we scaled up, the amount of people we were putting through to interview was taking billable people off their work. And I ended up getting all my heads off to do CV sifting 3 mornings a week in order to make sure the quality of candidates going through. So actually I had a nugget of pain that I dealt with in the hiring and recruitment space that I kind of knew about too. So I wanted to learn some AI, and I thought, how about we just get AI to interview candidates like in a little chatbot type thing. I thought, how hard can it be? I want to learn how to do this. Built it over a weekend, put 5 slides together describing what it did, and sent that round to a bunch of ex-colleagues. One of them came back and said, could you put it live next week? We've got an operations manager role that we're expecting a few hundred candidates in. So we'd love to put it live. So then I'm looking at this duct-taped piece of code that I'd done over the weekend and thought, right, I got to get it in shape. Anyway, long story short, it's just, just listening to, how did that work? What was good about it? What wasn't good? Speaking to the hiring managers, speaking to the candidates. Candidates hated a chatbot experience, by the way. And so I evolved, bit by bit, evolved the product to where it is today. And the product today, we are the front door to people's hiring process. So we're a candidate experience platform where for any job or role that you're putting out, you can create a bespoke application process for candidates to apply to. You can bring forward some of the open-ended questions that you might have on a phone call. We've still got that built into the product, just not in a chat form. And actually bring forward some of the things that you might do at later stages and build a picture that's greater than just a CV, a more complete picture of a candidate for a particular role. And then we can rank and assess candidates and move the best candidates forward. So, we target identifying the top 1 to 5% of candidates and helping them move faster through the process, connecting them with humans much quicker. And even for candidates who are being rejected, not letting them get lost in the black hole and making it easy for employers to get back to every candidate. And so, yeah, we're right at the top of the hiring funnel, if you will. We're right at that first interaction that a candidate has. But we see ourselves as a candidate experience platform, want to grow through that full journey and really bring AI and automation and all these good things to bear on that journey.
Wow.
But that's really evolved. We've continuously kind of just iterated, working very closely with our early customers to get to this point.
What? So you mentioned there the chatbot experience. 'Cause initially, when you said that, I was like, "Oh, that'd be awesome," but I can't imagine people loving. It might feel quite what's the word? Impersonal. So, what other things did you try that didn't work?
One thing, you can't get AI to create, for a list of 200 people, you can't get AI to write 200 personalized rejection emails. There's a few tools out there trying to do this. But the issue is you've got, you still need humans in the loop. You need to read every single one of those to make sure that it was appropriate for that candidate, or otherwise that could be an extremely bad experience for the candidate. So, that didn't work. And actually, there is a good balance there's a balance that you need to have about how much AI is working on the side of the candidate and how much is working for the employer. And I think one of the other things that we're trying to do is to make sure that candidates can put their best foot forward through the application flow. If a candidate hasn't got something in their CV, a keyword, they've missed a bit of experience. Should you automatically rule them out? Because that's how most ATSs and AI is being implemented today. Is like, what data do we have? We just got the CV. Okay, let's rule candidates out. And so we've thought to ourselves, well, how can we help candidates put their best foot forward? We should probably flag in the application itself, you haven't got this skill. Or in your CV, can you tell us whether you have any experience of this, or is this something that you are missing? And giving the candidate the opportunity during the application flow. And so we're building that right now, and that's functionality that we're building right now. But it's this kind of stuff, like, the AI could be easily working against people and creating inequality. And I think we need to make sure that that's balanced. And so that's been a huge learning curve for us, is not just building an AI to rank candidates and just help the hiring team. It's like, how do we make this work for the candidates as well?
Okay, amazing. So it sounds like there you're saying that AI has its place, but humans still need to be involved. Which, yeah, completely agree, because it's such a big life moment that it seemed weird that it would be taken over by a computer. And that sounds stupid, me saying computer, but AI. Do you think there is any part of the recruitment process that will be completely automated and taken over by AI?
Well, I think we all hope scheduling will finally be
a
problem.
Please solve that.
I don't think anyone would care about that. There's no negative outcomes from AI solving that problem. So there's definitely some areas that it could really help. In fact, there's probably multiple realities and coexisting all at once here. But one that it feels like most businesses are gravitating to is this AI pitted against AI. The candidate generating CVs, which is fine in my book. We can talk about that. But using AI to put together their cover letter, CVs, whatever, present themselves in the best possible way. And then you've got employers saying that they're using AI to try and detect AI from candidates and banning them from using AI or using AI to score against them. And really, you've just got this world where AI is just being used against each other and humans are being pushed further apart. And my view on it is that we should be doing the opposite. I know nothing about plumbing. I know nothing about gardening. I've had to get tradies in to help me with those things recently. And actually, ChatGPT's really enabled me to speak their language, understand more about the scopes of work that they've pitched me and what they, and comparing two different quotes from two different companies. It's enabled me to communicate and have a deeper communication with these. Actually, know what I'm talking about, research it, and kind of come back with some reasonable conversation. And that's an example of me using AI to kind of communicate better with other people rather than it being like, a force for negative. And I feel like that's where we need to be getting with AI and technology. It should be making the user experience or the candidate experience better, enabling us to speak the same language and communicate better, not putting humans apart,
And what do you think that's the AI CV thing? Because you're right, that's such a big point of contention at the minute.
I mean, what content don't I write that I use ChatGPT for? There's not one. The amount of time I just get hung up on a sentence that I don't know how to write, and I put it into ChatGPT, or I'm trying to speak to a tradie, don't know what I'm talking about, or it's the new. It's no longer have you Googled it? Your parent asks you, "Oh, how do I do this?" Well, have you Googled it? It's now, have you spoken to ChatGPT and had a backwards and forwards and done a bit of research with ChatGPT before it? So I just, how can you feel like you want to punish people for using AI to generate some content? I struggle to understand it. Maybe because I'm a techie, but I just can't. It's going to be the same as just using you used Word instead of writing it on a piece of paper. You've just typed it out instead of handwritten. It's so less valuable. It's that kind of view. It's like every bit of text is going to have an AI filter in future. I mean, even WhatsApp will probably end up being my AI talking to your AI. Eventually. And so anyway, I honestly feel like, we shouldn't be punishing people for using AI. In fact, actually, we should probably be putting them to the top of the queue. They should be getting the job, because AI is the one of the skills that every employee is going to need, just like being able to use a computer or use the internet. So I think it's a really positive thing if people are using AI. Of course, if people are lying or embellishing with AI, I mean, people have always been able to lie with a CV or lie in an interview. Like, of course they can do that. That's why you have reference checks. That's why you have other data points. You're focused on the wrong thing if you're banning AI in the hiring process, I think.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I similarly, I haven't heard any really strong arguments against AI CVs, other than people saying that, they're not putting the effort in and to write. It's like, yeah, but that's what, like, should I be washing my clothes outside on a washboard? Like, where does it end? So I completely agree. I think actually what should be happening is ATS systems and CRM systems or whatever you're using to ingest these CVs and resumes should be just more AI ready to deal with the AI stuff.
Exactly. You're going to maybe deal with an increased amount of applications.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that the candidate experience is good? The way ATSs are going today, they are literally making the candidate experience poorer.
Yeah.
You've got more and more candidates applying. You've got even the leading tools like Ashby, ultimately just looking for keywords. They might be using AI, but just looking for keywords in CVs and ranking candidates based on that. And I think this is the AI being used is actually going to push humans further apart. It's going to create poorer candidate experiences, and I think that is going to push a need from employers to stand out in the market. Human-centered approaches are going to come back to the forefront in this world of AI. I think it's going to make the human touch even more important. And I think, well, that's where I'm placing my bet, is on candidate experience. Let's not build another ATS that's focused on the hiring team and their needs, very internally facing, self-serving. Let's build platforms that are focused on the candidate and their experience and enabling the hiring team to serve the candidate's needs best. And so, that's where we're placing our bets at FirstStage.
And just on FirstStage, and you've demoed the platform to me. It's absolutely awesome to anybody who's listening. But does FirstStage sift through applications and give you an idea of the top applicants?
Absolutely, we're doing that. But through the application form, we're actually enabling candidates to provide more information than just a CV. That's the thing, right? Like, at the moment, the data that we're operating on is very flat, and I think we need to provide as many ways for candidates to provide more information. For example, sure, if your CV is already detailed that you've got an experience, you don't need to ask that in the application form.
Sure.
But the candidates who haven't got that in their CV, we should probably ask it in the application form.
Yeah.
The application flow should be adaptive based on the individual candidates, and we should be asking for a bit more information if we need it. Likewise, video is a really great way to see and understand a candidate and get a different perspective, or having a conversation with them. So, but we shouldn't ask 200 or 1,000 applicants to give that amount of time up front, right? That's really unfair on them. It's going to take too long for a human on the hiring side to review all of that video anyway. So actually, when we identify candidates who are really great, we can actually send them a follow-up and say, hey, we'd love for you to just record a quick 3-5 you're through to the next round. We'd love for you to be able to just provide a quick video, and then that's starting to build a more complete picture on the top candidates, not asking for too much from other candidates.
A lot of people talk about how it'll just be AI talking to AI. It's like, is that a bad thing, really? I mean, we can't redo the higher level creative, more like human stuff and let AI take care of the stuff that doesn't need us. In my eyes, yeah.
Look, if we can use AI to get humans speaking quicker,
yeah,
right? Like if you've got a few hundred candidates sitting in a list that's only getting processed every few weeks, you've got a 2-3 week delay before you're actually getting through to a hiring manager for sure. In most cases, when you're applying for a job,
yeah.
But if you're in the top 1 to 5% of candidates, why aren't you speaking to a hiring manager within the week when you've applied? Why is that? Why are you not getting bubbled to the top of the list? So that's a great opportunity for AI to be used to help give a really good experience. But then when as I say, when you're dealing with the full list of candidates, giving more tools to all of the candidates, understand why some candidates are not a good fit in the application form. If we've identified that they've got some gaps in their CV, asking them to fill in the blanks, and just trying to work on their side as well as on the hiring team side. And this is what I mean, AI should be working on, but both sides and using it fairly, I think. And ultimately, I think that's the only way businesses are going to defend themselves against risk, bias and discrimination. Ultimately, I think the systems that are purely geared against, automatically rejecting candidates based on some stuff that they might have left out of their CV, that's ultimately not going to be the right way. By the way, I'll say FirstStage started out in that space and we're evolving it based on candidate feedback, based on worries from from employers. And we're rapidly trying to innovate in that space. And we think that's going to help us stand out because I think, lots of these ATSs are focused internally on the hiring team and not necessarily on the broader reputational damage that focus could have.
Yeah, that's such an awesome take. So yeah, you were talking before about can we get humans to talk faster? And I think I'm like, yeah, awesome, that'd be great because we can do more. Some people think, is it just going to make us into these like productivity machines where we won't be more freed up? We'll just be able to take more on, which some people see as a bad thing. I don't, because I'm a bit of like a workaholic, which is not a good thing. What do you think to that?
The thing that made me immediately think is how COVID and remote working ultimately just eked out more time. I went crazy in lockdown, because suddenly you're not going out and traveling to an office. You're just like plugging, like moving for your, especially in the flat I was in Manchester at the time. I moved from my bed to my desk, which was in the same bedroom, and locked myself in, and I'm just like a talking head on calls for like 8 hours straight and like 5 days a week. And so that was an example of like moving to an online, that's tech first approach, right? Remote first, and it having a bad outcome and like constantly being plugged into the matrix. So I there's this negative place that you could get to maybe with AI where we're just working hard, but that's not been my experience at all. Like I've been able to in one day. Admittedly, it was a 14-hour coding session on a Sunday when I should have probably been doing other things. But Claude Code, right? Playing around with Claude Code, and just like I was able to knock out an entire mini SaaS product with payment flow and everything. In like 14 hours, and like that was so cool being able to do that. That's so exciting to be able to the productivity gains. I mean, maybe we're maybe we're from the same view where work is really interesting for us, and we're privileged to be working in places where that is the case. But nah, I'm so up for it. I'm so up for being able to do more. I mean, I love that I can be completely out of my depth. Trying to set up a employee share scheme. Know nothing about it, and so. I started just having conversations with ChatGPT, like really just asking lots of questions, and it's helped me work out the right questions, what platforms potentially to use to do it, what solicitors I could try and reach out to who might have appropriate services. And I don't know how I would have done that. Otherwise, it would have been a lot more manual research. And so suddenly I can do that in an afternoon, and I've got a bit of a plan. In fact, I got it to put together a 5-page document that I've now handed over to a virtual assistant who's now running that project for me. And AI gave me the starter for 10 to give to them. I don't think that would be just a burning, a pending pile of to do for me. But that suddenly got done, and I'm able to move forward, and I'm able to, reward the team with shares and get that up and running sooner rather than just having promises. So that's such an impact, such a good thing. And I'm, I just think this productivity is, I'm so bull case on it. It is so, I think it's going to unlock a lot of potential. I think actually it's the only thing that could save the UK and our growth slump. I think we really need to double down on being pro tech and pro business.
So, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast around how you've been coding since 13. FirstStage is your current business, but before that you had another business that didn't work out. It was in blockchain. And off camera we were talking about this kind of democratization of people being able to create businesses and democratization of technology, right? So traditionally people who aren't technical, who would have had to go out and find a technical founder, that's not necessarily a deal breaker anymore. What do you think to that?
I think, there is so much that we can now do with AI, whether it's, researching a project or generating video content on the fly or whatever. There is so much. So I think that's a huge enabler. I think it's a huge opportunity for, helping people start more businesses, smaller teams. I'm really passionate at the moment about keeping the team as small as possible. I said your career development won't be that you've built a whole team around you and that you've kind of gone up in your management of your career, you're a manager. That's not the career progression we're offering. The career progression we're offering is that you're just going to have a massive impact individually on your area of the business. You're going to grow a massive function with the help of AI and trying to keep that as lean as possible. And I just think that's really interesting that we can do that. And I think that makes it cheaper to start businesses and run businesses and more profitable. So that takes some pressures off of people. So I just think this is a great win for enabling entrepreneurship, enabling more business, enabling more people to be more productive. I think it's an exciting age that we just need to capture. We need to capture it as a society. The UK, I think it's the answer to the UK's growth stagnation. I think the government should really be backing technology and backing AI and really investing in these things. And making us a centre of excellence, or I don't know, just make the whole of the UK. Let's just get everyone using AI. Let's not be scared of it. Let's really lean into it. And I actually think that could unlock a lot of our economic woes. I think.
I love that theory of that thought that. What impact did you have? Your career progression is going to be based on the impact you had, rather than I grew a team to 15 people and managed this many people and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I mean, I grew a consultancy, so I've done the people growth
thing.
It,
yeah.
And you're ultimately just, it's you're dealing with a lot of human problems. I just want to get me back to the code. That's really what it's about for me. But no, wouldn't it be? I just love this idea. Look, going back to the early conversation we had about apprenticeships and journeymen and masters and much smaller crafts and smaller local or artisanal businesses and things. I'd love a world where we're all a bit more business friendly. We've all got a little business. My thing's the arts and prints. Well, my partner does that, right? She creates art and sells them online on Etsy. But she could have, if she was building a few AIs that could generate art in her style, she could be generating all sorts of stuff. So I feel like this could be in every facet of society, and I think. Do we all have to work for big corporates and just be a number, or can we find more meaning in what we do? And anyway, it's probably a bit pie in the sky, but I feel like the opportunity is there with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I love that thought of lean teams. It's kind of like big teams. A lot of the time, is a lot of it's ego, right? It's just like how many headcount have you got, and there's so much middle management. Who don't do anything.
You end up just defending it, and I look. At the end of the day, I think you get, or at least I get enjoyment from seeing an idea through to completion and doing. I feel like once you're kind of at this level where it's really meta and you're just like dealing with people and managing people, it's kind of it's too far away from the coalface for me, and I feel like. That's probably what we've done. We've kind of, as we've industrialized over the last couple of 100 years, we've kind of just got really good at creating these big organizational structures where we just do a very, very small part of the puzzle. And I just feel like that means you're diluting your meaning as well. At least that's my take on that.
How do you use AI in your day-to-day stuff? Like, I know at work you'll be using code.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I ever have a question about anything, I'm going to ChatGPT rather than Google to ask it. I mean, I'm going Berlin next week. It's kind of work, kind of kind of leisure. But yeah, I was just getting it to come. I said, well, are there any last minute things that are happening in August in Berlin? Can you recommend anything to do? Oh, what about food spots? I'm just having a backwards and forwards chat, and then I say, right, can you just produce that into a little doc? And I've shared that with my mates. So it's just like it's just every facet of everything I do is kind of got AI in the loop now, I think. And yeah, I just, if you haven't tried like Claude Code or you're a coder, like you need to get on that. Like even if you're like a CTO who's like no longer coding, I think you just have to spend a weekend playing around with this stuff. It is unbelievable, and it is transforming what we do.
How do you know you've got a good idea, like a new business idea?
Well, it's all like ideas are basically worthless. You have to let go of that idea very early on. That blockchain idea I had, I was trying to bash people with my, I'm like, you need this thing, you need this idea of mine. With FirstStage, we're coming at it the opposite way. We're asking people what's good, what can we help you with? What's not good about your current processes? What could we do to kind of, where are your biggest pain points? And then we're building that into something and then evolving. So it's kind of flipping it on the head. We're kind of working out the idea whilst kind of validating there's an actual problem there with our customers and feeding it. And I think it's that, just coming back to your question, it's like that is execution is the most important thing. It's not about a great idea. I think you need to be aligned to the area that you're kind of trying to find a good idea in. I mean, I'm most passionate about building software, but I'm also passionate about businesses and growing businesses, and people are a part of that. And so that's interesting to me. And so I don't actually care what the actual product or solution is. I just want to find the solution that's right for the audience, and that's the mission. Ideas aren't, they're not really worth much if you can't execute them. Great thing about AI, you could maybe run 10 experiments at once.
It's true,
right? And so you can, run experiments, see which one pulls, and then double down on that one. And so that's very exciting.
What do you mean by that? Like sending it out and getting feedback, quicker? You mean?
You could literally build 5 or 10 different businesses. you could have a conversation with an AI, get it to build a pitch deck, just a 5 or 10 slide deck in like an afternoon. I've done it with 3 other ideas recently, and just sent them round. Not that I need another business. But,
I was going to say.
But you can very quickly just articulate something, get it to like a pitch deck that you can share around for feedback. So, one of the things that I've done in my past company at Made Tech that we ended up becoming successful, we tried 3 or 4 different business lines, and actually each director took a different business line, was pitching it, trying to work out what was the engine that's going to drive the growth of the business. And it turns out one of those bets was the right one, and we doubled that. We quit everything else and focused on that, which was helping the public sector get better at digital and bringing like tech startup world to the government and helping them build better services for citizens. So that ended up being the thing that we grew from. And again, like with AI, if I can run 10 of those experiments or 20 of those experiments, I can very quickly find the business lines that I could maybe invest in and double down on. So your rate of being able to execute and get feedback and validate ideas is more important than ideas itself, I think.
Whoa. Last couple of questions because I'm conscious of time. On the validating ideas, because whenever I ask people who are startup founders or investors or whatever, the most important thing they say is validate your idea.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing. There's no point building something if no one wants it, right? How, if say you were building, FirstStage, how did you validate your idea?
Well, that very first thing that I built was actually just a side project for me. A bit of an idea. I sent that practical example round to, I don't know, about 15 people max, and also gave them 5 slides describing what it was. And I got some pull just from one person, and that pull, they pulled me in, said, let's try it out, let's use it. And, then I could build a bit more data, actually speak to the candidates who went through the process, speak to the hiring managers who used it, and I could incorporate that into the thing. So you definitely have to throw something first. You need to build a prototype, or you need to get something tangible that's going to get the feedback. So you've got to take a punt. You definitely do, but that punt should be a fairly cheap thing for you to do. That's only taking you a few days to get that first thing, and it's a snowball effect. You're just rolling and rolling, and gradually it's getting bigger and bigger and evolving. At least that's what I found has worked at this one, and at the time before last at Made Tech, and the idea that I had in between, I was not doing that. I was more excited about my solution, and it was about my ego attached to this idea of a solution, and like society needs this thing. But yeah, so that was all ego driven, whereas like the time before that was like, we'll just try a few ideas out and see which one grows, and that's what I've done with FirstStage as well.
So also be ready just to give it, like if it's not working, let go or be dragged.
You have to let go. Yeah. Yeah, it's an exercise in ego, or I've called it CEO driven development, where it's just like the top dog and their idea kind of. I actually 3 or 4 roles ago ended up rebuilding the same app 3 times over, and then it was only in the last few weeks of runway. It was just me and one of the founders left. Like went from a team of 10 with an office down to just me and the founder. And only then did we start doing door-to-door sales for our product. And like we should have been doing the sales before we even built anything and validating. So I learned that one earlier on.
Wow, validate first.
Validate always, yeah.
And look, you might have answered this question already, but anyone who has got an idea out there for a business and wants to build it and sell it, what would be your piece of advice?
I would say describe it in whatever form makes most sense for you. That could be an A4 sheet of paper. It could be a deck. It could be you talking to a video. But describe it and just share it with people and get some feedback. And build on that. Build on conversations. Find who your potential users or customers are and speak to them as early as possible. Don't spend money on building something. Don't outsource to someone to start building your software before you've at least tested your ideas with paper prototypes or with pitch decks or cheap prototypes. To be honest, use something like Replit or Lovable to kind of generate your prototype and test it if it's a tech thing. But just keep it cheap. Don't overthink it. Just get going, get the feedback.
Love it. Awesome. Great note to end on. Luke, thanks so much for coming on. Your business is awesome. You've demoed it. It's sick, honestly. Anyone who's listening, go and give it a look.
Thanks, Jack.
And book in a demo with Luke. And excited to see where you're at in 12 months.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jack. I loved it.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Anything we talked about will be linked in the show notes. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll catch you on the next one.